Hello everyone, this is part 2 of the Energetics of Activism video. And hi, if you haven't watched part 1, go and watch it. I'm talking a lot about my own personal experience and identity within activism in that video, so if you're interested in that, go ahead and watch part 1. But if you'd like to hear more on the kind of like spiritual side or, whatever, the sort of like the difference between the 3D and the 5D viewpoints on activism, then you can go ahead and just watch this video. Do whatever you want. That's kind of like what I'm getting at here. So, in terms of energetics, I think it's important to acknowledge that we have come here to this experience on Earth to experience duality and separation and ego, and experience things like values, experience things like pain, so that we can have the healing and transformation from that pain, so we can have a healing experience. There's also a lot of people who take this perspective that the earth is actually like a valuable resource spiritually, and that we're actually, all, it's kind of like the starseed story dialogue. And I want to make a video specifically about that because I'm still learning about that. But I think I mentioned in the last video, yeah, there's people who believe that the politicians are being sort of like controlled by this other race, this extraterrestrial celestial race, and that we are kind of like the light workers, are kind of like the people who are coming to raise the vibration of the earth in order to save it. And I honestly think that this is kind of a, it's kind of feeding into the same dynamics of yin and yang, of back and forth, of maybe I was gonna say pretending, but I didn't mean to say that. Of feeding into a story of good guy and bad guy, of heroes and victims and villains, which when it comes down to it, on the largest scale of existence, we are all one. The universe is one large being that can't do anything other than just expand. And basically in astronomy class, I learned that the universe is always collapsing and expanding, and it's more of a multiverse. It's more of just like an infinite fuckulation of everything that could possibly ever exist. So, basically within the third dimension, it kind of makes sense to try to like change the minds of other people, and to to change the world through like changing policy and all this kind of stuff that's like earth stuff. But from a larger perspective, it doesn't necessarily make sense to try to change anything at all, because it's all chaos. So trying to change it, you're not going to change it through exerting your control over it. That doesn't, if anything, it kind of like the way the law of attraction works, it kind of reinforces your role within that. So if you identify heavily with your traumas, and you allow your wounds to be exacerbated and not healed through perpetuating the energies that are within your wounds, instead of alchemizing, healing them, choosing to see them as a catalyzing experience that can truly transform you, and have the ability to lead a happy life. You won't be happy until your ideal existence is achieved within the 3D, and you've done it through attempting to exert control over the oppressor and to change the minds of the people who hurt you. I believe that's fighting a losing battle, but at the same time, I think it's necessary for people to do that in this lifetime if that's what they feel called to do, because that's what I felt called to do for a long time. And it helped me to shift my energy, like I was talking about in the last video, from feeling totally powerless and in denial to feeling like I had, some level of empowerment and togetherness with other people, instead of feeling ostracized from my identity and things like that. I felt like I could commiserate and band together with a bunch of other, sort of like activists, and like, eventually kind of like formulate like, okay, how are we going to change this, and do all kinds of different things that were mostly based in anger and resentment and the victim identity to be completely honest with you, how I feel about that. The word victim is so charged, though. I feel like I should, give, at least a couple minutes to talk about the word victim and what it means. Basically, you've been through a painful experience at the hands of somebody else who, typically would be completely lacking in compassion for you and your own personal experiences, just using your energy. So, victim is like when somebody like takes your energy in a situation, and usually it's because they don't have that energy in their body. Like, you might see them as more powerful than you, but a lot of people commit an offense or an act on another because they're trying to suck that energy into themselves. They're trying to take your energy. And again, this is something that your soul signs up to do, is experience that as a being on the outside of this body. You won't be able to understand it from this perspective because it's so painful, so hard. And you can look into your astrological chart and even see where that's happening. And yeah, there's like lots of different ways archetypes can play out. There's lots of different like octaves. So like for me, the Aquarius archetype in my chart as an Aquarius moon is like experiencing a lot of trauma, so that I can sort of like transcend that and be empathic and understand, trauma on that level of like, being able to sort of like see and feel into other people's traumas as having somebody who can recognize that experience or recognize when someone else is getting triggered on a level of like, PTSD or something like that, and to understand mental illness and mental health. But yeah, that was like another thing I wanted to talk about. So these spiritual concepts I'm talking about now have helped me to actually heal from a state of being, perpetually a victim, perpetually angry, not being able to see happiness outside of an ideal world where everybody was doing exactly what I wanted them to do on an ideological level. But yeah, I don't think that anybody would ever be completely happy with the systems that they've kind of dreamed up, because the way things actually happen in reality, the way things actually play out energetically, tend to be like, even if you take a person who's wounded and you kind of like force them to do different things ideologically, they're still wounded, and so they're still going to hurt other people if there isn't healing built into that ideology. So if if your ideology is like really militant and like you expect people to just rise up against the oppressor and fight them, that's totally unrealistic, because everybody's going to have PTSD after that, and they're all going to have these like really chaotic energetic systems and not be able to function in a group. And that's just the way that it is. So yeah, there's all kinds of wounding that can happen within activism. When you're in it and you're holding on to that anger, there's a lot of wounding that can happen, because there'll start to be a lot of infighting, and a lot of people will start to be made oppressors within that group, and a lot of people will commit acts of violence, even within your ideological group, when you have this idea that they're perfect because they have the same ideology as you. So that happens pretty much all in all subcultures that are out there. If you're in like an ideological cult and you become traumatized by somebody in that cult, like that, I've been there. That's happened to me. I understand how hard that is when you feel like the rug has been pulled out from under your feet, like you found a place of safety, that you found a place where you feel like your energy can be, enhanced by the people that you're around, the people who understand your experience, and then they use that against you. They exploit that because of their own woundedness. And that doesn't mean you can't be angry with them because they're wounded, because they've been victimized. That doesn't mean you can't be mad. You should be mad. You should get mad at the people who've hurt you. But that does not mean that you can change them, and it does not mean that you can expect them to put the pieces back together for you. We are here on this planet to learn how to heal ourselves and ask for the help of our guides, for our angels, and for the people who who understand these energetic dynamics, to help us to heal our bodies through closing the gap and finding community that is based on healing, and instead of based on attempting to correct and micromanage each other into these perfectionist ideologies that it's just going to be impossible and everything's going to fall apart because nobody's going to be perfect. So this is where forgiveness and acceptance come into play. These ideas are going to trigger people right away. Like, some people probably turn off this video, like, honestly, like, right away. But other people are going to turn off this video when they hear the word forgiveness, because really, my brain is still so embedded in my trauma, I cannot conceive of forgiving the people who hurt me. And yeah, I totally understand that. I was not able to come to a place of forgiveness for a very long time for the people who hurt me, because I thought that it meant condoning their actions. I thought that it meant condoning the actions of people who were doing that in the future. Honestly, no matter how much you let go and forgive the people who hurt you, it doesn't pave the way for future abusers. They're gonna do that anyway. It's not you that creates that, it's them. It's their own position in their own life, and you're not in control of that. So consider that. Consider on an energetic level that they have been born into a society that expects them to be a certain way, and in order to be accepted within a group and not be outcasted, that they've played that role. And that you asking them to change is asking them to essentially, abandon everything they know in their family, and, or either just have the ability to hold themselves within that and be different as a part of a group, which is extremely hard. So, we're asking people of, like, oppressor class and whatever to suddenly make themselves different. And that automatically feels like submission and victimhood to the person who's being asked to do that. Having that understanding, psychologically, that cognitive dissonance. Oh no, I've been hurting other people this whole time, and I thought I was doing the right thing because this is what my whole family and culture told me to do. I'm not going to admit to that, because then I'm just going to be ostracized. No one's going to love me. So, when we are, we're perpetuating this anger, we got to be careful to be able to process our emotions without, basically forcing them, like, back into this cycle. It kind of reminds me of the dynamic between narcissist and codependent, where one person is hurting others because they're wounded, through their whole ancestral line, through the ideologies that are, based on the yang sort of energy, or the shadow of yang, or the toxic masculinity, whatever you want to call it, the colonialist, mentality, that they've been hurt by that too, through their journey, and that's what's causing them to sort of, like, take other people's energy that way. And the codependent is like, I know better than you because I was hurt by you, and I'm going to change you, and I'm going to help you by attempting to exert control over you. And that, that dynamic of control is, like, what sort of, like, unites and creates the energetic cord between the oppressor and the oppressed. So in order to release that cord and release yourself from that dynamic, you have to be able to say, okay, I see where you're at. I understand what brought you to that point. I understand that you were only ever doing your best, which may have been, disgusting to me, and my experiences might have been horrible and painful for me, but I'm not going to gain anything from holding on to this idea that you need to change for me to feel happy, that you need to apologize to me for me to feel happy, that you need to start being something other than what you are. So yeah, I believe this is the kind of, like, expanded 5D perspective, because it takes into account everything, like every side of the issue, and it's not to say that you shouldn't be angry. You should feel all of your feelings and send love to the parts of you that are wounded, send love to the parts of you that don't want to forgive, send love to the parts of you that do, and ultimately into all of the selves that you are throughout all timelines, to the whole universe, because you're just going to receive it right back when you do that. So energetically healing your wounds, it's going to take time, but the first thing that you could do is send love to yourself. Send love to yourself. Forgive yourself for whatever you've been through, and however you feel like it's your fault. That's the first step in activism, is healing yourself. So, go ahead and do that. If you want to get like a tarot reading from me or anything, I'm going to leave my email in the description box of this video. Like and subscribe, and thank you very much for watching.